Hello, welcome to the Rooms with Ronald podcast, brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington. In 2023, I set an intention to shop 100 apartment communities to see how leasing was evolving around the country. Rooms with Ronald was born out of that experience. In this series, I share my experiences and engage in meaningful conversations with other professionals in the industry as we discuss all things related to leasing and marketing. Join in as we expand the Rooms with Ronald experiment. Hello, and welcome to today's episodes of Rooms with Ronald. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington, and this is a podcast about everything leasing and marketing. Today is a solo episode as I recently did some shops and I want to share the experience and then announce some exciting news. So let's jump right into everyone. So if you have been following along, you know I shopped a whole bunch of properties last year, to 101 to be exact. I'm slacking a lot this year, guys. I just looked at the data that I've been compiling because I'm always about the data, and I've only done 11 shops this year in person. I've done some other shops along the side that don't necessarily count as in person, but I've only done 11 in person. And recently, I conducted 5 of those in Houston not too long ago. Yes, you heard me right. I conducted 5 tours in one day. Probably the most that I've done in a really long time. So I did kind of feel like a true prospect. And it was overwhelming, right? The product, to think about 5 different communities in one day kind of put me in a different mindset when I got to thinking about how the prospects feels. Because a lot of times that's what they're doing. They're going to see 2 and 3 and 4 different apartment communities, oftentimes in the same day. So you have to be different and you have to stand out. So when I was looking at my Houston trip and where I wanted to shop properties, I did it on a Saturday, kind of last minute. So I was looking to book on Monday. So I was trying to actually shop like 7 different apartment communities in Houston on that Monday. However, I could only book at 5 because 2 of the properties did not have an online portal for me to book. Guys, we are in September, early October. It's 2024. Why can't I book an appointment online? We have to get better. Like, this is not becoming just a nicety, right? Like, it would be nice if we can book it. This is what prospects are wanting. I want to be able to book the appointment because I'm building a schedule. So I put in the guest card that I had to put into their system for them to even respond to me to book this appointment. So I put it in, and it took them about 3 to 4 hours to respond. And by that point, I had already moved on. I already jam-packed my day. I could not fit them in any other time slots because I was booking the other 5. So that actually could have cost them a real sell, right? If this is a true prospect and they're coming in for the day, or maybe they only have one day because their life is busy, they lost out on that potential sell because it wasn't as easy as to book an appointment online. And this was a large management company. So it's not like they just didn't know, right? Like, oh, it's a mom and pop. No, it was a large management company that did not have this option. So I could not go tour. And then the follow-up was like pretty generic. And I even put in the body of this guest card that I was looking to tour on that Monday, right? So literally within like 48 hours, I wanted to tour. And what they did is I never got a text. I never got a phone call. It was just email. If you knew the turnaround was that tight, why not pick up the phone and call your prospect? Hey, it's Ronald from ABC Community. I'm so excited you're looking at making a home with us. I see that you're looking to make a tour, for Monday. Is there a time that works for you? Instead of this back and forth of the email. I never actually responded to the email because, again, I had already moved on, right? My attention span isn't a lot. So after 3 hours, I was on. I had booked my 5 appointments online. I got the time slots. I was going to choose from one of those 5. So that was not the best experience, right? And we hear a lot about people talking about the customer journey and the customer experience and all of this. And to me, what they thought was a customer experience. I don't work for that company, so I don't know. But right in their minds, they're probably trying to be different and saying, we'll have them put them on a guest card and then we'll follow up with them and then they won't be able to book online. So we're going to be unique and different. That hindered my customer experience and it caused me not to go to that property, to those two properties. And both properties were managed by the same company. So when I went to that second property and I saw that, I was like, okay, this is going to be unique, right? It's going to be the same thing. So I got my 5 properties when I landed, right? So I was ready to hit the ground. So I got to, I got off the plane in Houston and I had a voicemail from the very first property I was going to go tour, which really excited me, right? They called, they confirmed all of those things. Nice lady. Then I had the text came in because it was an SMS and not the iMessage, right? So it came in. I responded to the text. I thought, oh, wow, this is going to be a great journey, right? They've already asked me, my move-in date, the size of apartment I'm looking for, my must-haves, all of these things, right? I respond via text. They said, great. We look forward to seeing you. So I called. I thought, how cool is this, right? They already know these things. They're going to have an apartment ready for me. That in their mind, what they see, because they were responding. Then I got there. Beautiful community. Beautiful community. However, there was no expectation of where to park. So I turn in and I go past the building, the garage. I'm like, oh, there's valet parking. Do I valet park my car? That just seems odd. There's no signs that say future residents. So I turn around and I'm like, okay, maybe I just park along the street here. Then I parked along the street and I'm like, oh, this is meter parking. So, well, this can't be right? They're not going to have me pay to come tour, are they? So I decided, you know what? Let me just go up to where the valet is and let me see. I'm like, hi, I have a tour, XYZ, right? Where did I park my car? And they're like, oh, we'll take care of it. Cool. That was nice. That set a really nice tone for me. Except for then I was like, then I had this moment of self panic, right? I don't have any cash on me. Do I tip the valet person? Do I not tip the valet person? What do I do if I don't have cash? Do I ask for Venmo? That's expectation I was unsure about. So they park my car, they get my name, they let the person know. I walk in. The first person I see is like, hi, how can I help you? I say, oh, I have a tour. He tells me to go have a seat. He was at the desk, so my assumption is I was never introduced to this, nor was this mentioned on the tour. My assumption is that he was a concierge. Now, I love concierge. That's amazing. But you need to tell me that, right? Because in my mind, I was like, oh, he doesn't want to help me. He said, oh, the leasing professional will be back. So then that's when it triggered. Oh, okay. So she comes over. She asks me my name. She tells me to have a seat at this desk. So I go have a seat. And she starts to ask me all the same questions that are in the text that I got. Move-in date, my price range, all of those questions. They never read it. So then this told me, oh, so I was really excited that I was going to have all this ready. It was the AI who was sending out automated follow-ups and that they never read it. So I was instantly kind of frustrated that they didn't read the guest card. Why did I take time to fill this out? And then I get handed a book or a floor plan book. And they say, go ahead and any of these floor plans speak to you? Do any of these floor plans speak? Well, I don't know because it's a floor plan. So, right. So I'm essentially looking at square footage. Not once does she say, what are your deal breakers? What are you looking for? Any of that. She put the work on me to find a floor plan that spoke to me. Here's the problem. I don't know what you have available. So essentially, I'm just going to be taking a stab and I might fall in love with this diagram and you have to come back and deliver me bad news. Hey, sorry, we don't have that one available. And that's exactly what happened. So we end up finding a couple. She, leads with the price, leads with the special, and then we go on the tour. And we see the amenities, and she's like flying through this tour, like at the amenity space. And she did ask me like, oh, do you see yourself working out here? That was cool, right? And then we go to the model, and then we were getting ready to go down. She's like, oh, never mind. I need to go get another key because you wanted to see this. So it was like after the fact that she realized I needed to go see this other apartment. So I had to wait for her by the elevator while she go grab the key to show me this apartment. They had this little like self-checkout vending machine that I thought was really cool. And then she was like, it does charge a deposit. So, there was some confusion. Someone thought the deposit was $5 and they bought $25 worth of stuff and they were charged $25. So she really went into the nitty gritty of that I necessarily didn't care about. And we see some apartments that aren't ready. She says, oh my gosh, these are ready. They weren't. Ice trays out, like an appliance was moved out. It wasn't cleaned, all of that. And then she tells me they had just bought the property. So a lot of the time she was unsure. So I'm asking about parking and about valet. Is there a charge? She's like, no, it's free. You can tip them if they want. Then I instantly go back to this moment of panic because I didn't have cash on me. So how am I going to tip the valet? And then they're going to think I'm cheap because I didn't tip them. And if I move in there, I'm always going to be the one who didn't tip, right? A lot of self-fear here. But she never asked me to apply for the apartment. So that wasn't the best experience. Their wow factor was the valet parking. For the prospect, I thought that was cool, except for it was never communicated for me, and I might have prepared a little bit different. So then I go to the second community. Again, they've only sent some generic follow-ups. I'm not sure of what the expectation is. I go in, I park in the garage. Future resident parking was full. So there was other parking, but it was visitor parking. They kept talking about getting towed. I was a little worried because I tried to do the app, but it asked for the apartment number, and it was a whole thing, right? So luckily my car didn't get towed. So I went in and I toured. Concierge greeted me. The leasing professional came over, stood up, shook my hand, did all of those things. Got to know me. I thought it was a nice touch that she brought in her coworker who was sitting at the desk next to her, and he introduced himself, welcomed me to the property, told me that Reagan was going to take good care of me, which was really cool. I was like, hey, this is really cool. I love this. So we go on the tour. She's telling me about the events. She shows me an apartment, how they're tech heavy they are, how the key fob is, really cool because it only gives you access to your floor and then to the amenity floor. And then if you have visitors coming in, you have to come down and get them, which, was her attempt to sell security. I totally understand that without saying the word security. So my question was, okay, so I live on the 5th floor and I have friends who are coming, that now live on the 8th floor, right? I referred a friend, they live on the 8th floor. I've met people, whatever the scenario is, right? So you mean to tell me to get to their house to go see them, I'm going to have to say, hey, I know you live above me. Let's meet in the lobby, pray that our elevator crosses. So if we meet on my floor, because again, it's going to go down. So to the lobby, then we have to go to your apartment. I can't access that floor because my key fob don't work there, which is a little odd, right? Because a part of apartment living is that people want to live and build a community. So essentially, if I build a community outside my floor, we have to meet in the lobby or the amenity floor to go up to whoever's apartment because they can't get to it. So I thought that was a hurdle, and she did not really overcome that objection really well. The apartments were beautiful. What they had going for them was their amenity space. Truly, it was resort style. It was a whole floor. The pool was gorgeous. The clubhouse was gorgeous. The gym was phenomenal. they had a unique hydro massage bed, which, mind you, when I first started in this industry in 2014, the property I worked at, we got that one. So I like to say we were like kind of like the pioneers, but it was great to see it. She showed me how it worked. I might have been like, hey, have you ever used one of these before? No. "Oh, we got a second. Why don't you just go in and just try it out for a minute? Like, get a feel for it. Like, get me involved in it because if you've never been on a hydro massage bed, it is amazing." But she didn't. So we kind of like went through that. The amenities were open 24 hours, which again, great selling point. Great selling point. Um, we talked about some of the resident events that they did. Great tour. Told me about the specials. And then we get back and we go over all the fees. And they had this like fee. And instead of like going over what that fee entailed, she gives me a paper. And it was kind of like I felt, again, my feelings as a prospect, which is probably a reality to me, that there wasn't transparency. They thought they were being transparent, but there wasn't this transparency uh, in this realm, right? It was like, here's a piece of paper. I don't want to talk about it. Let's go. Let's like kind of brush that underneath the table. Now, it entailed a lot, and it was a lot about smart rent and like all of these different things, right? Super cool. Again, spend some time to go over that if you're gonna be charging $150 to $200 an additional monthly fee. Take the time to really understand that I understand what's going on. So I was like, oh, okay, cool, right? We go through the whole thing. Never once did she ask for this. Then I go to my third tour. I kind of like drive up and instantly I kind of thought I was in a assisted senior living community, right? 55 and better, but I wasn't. It's just kind of that vibe that again I get like when I toured what they were going for. So I walk in, I talk to the person at the desk, no clue who he is, but he works there. He's like, I'm like, oh, I have Tori. He looks me up. He tells me to have a seat. Someone will be right with me. Then a lady comes out of the office. She scans my ID, gives it back to me, and then like kind of disappears. And then the leasing agent like finally comes over, starts talking to me, scans my ID again, and says, oh, they've already scanned it. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why you want it? Again, no communication within the office. I'm giving a book. We're like flipping through some things. They're kind of getting my move-in date. He's like, oh, we only have these 2 apartments available. We might have 3. Let me go look. Finds out someone canceled. He goes, looks great. And so we're going along the way. And we go see the model first. Beautiful model. I mean, probably one of the most knowledgeable people in the industry that I've worked at. Told me how long you've been at the property, ins and outs, right? Cool. We go see it. We go to this next apartment. And they're painting it. He like kind of warns me that they might be working on it, but they weren't yesterday, so we could go see it. So we go see it, and they're painting it. He like walks in. The guy's like, we're painting, so we can't go see it, but he like kind of like opens the door so I can see like in there, and we walk on each other's door. He has paint on his hands. And I'm like petrified because he has a really nice outfit on. I'm like, hey, you got paint on your hands. Oh, so we go through, we like go see. He's like, oh, you're bringing a dog, right? Never asked me about my dog, the name, the size, any of that. And I'm like, yeah. So he takes me outside, shows me the dog run in the dog park and like all of that, and really is selling this. Tells me about their generator because, it's Houston and they had just went through a hurricane. They were preparing for another one, all of that. And then we go see the final apartment. They had just moved out. Like, there was a hole in the wall. They hadn't painted. It was missing appliances. They hadn't even cleaned it yet. That was like the impression. He tells me he's going to send me some videos, which I thought was super cool. And then, but never asked me for the apartment. Never went over the special. I get an email with the special in it. It was nothing to write home about. But, so I was like, why didn't you tell me this on the tour part of it? Then, so I was like, okay. But what they did, and I love this idea, is they had just made a local hotspot sheet of like 100 different hotspots in the area with a QR code that you could scan, and it would kind of show you on the map if you were logged into Google. And they had it broken down by restaurants and grocery stores and coffee houses and retail and all these different things. for someone who's moving outside the area, that was a super cool like thing. I was like, oh wow. Now I would have liked to see it more of a professional like cardstock or something like that. It was a trifold paper and it looked like their color copies were running low. But besides the point, right? It was a super cool idea and it was unique. I had not seen anything like that. And I thought, oh wow, this is a great selling tool, right? Like now I know there's at least 100 different things I can go try in this area. Then we go on to the fourth tour and I'm like turning in my appointment scheduled. And like 2 minutes before I get to the apartment, they call. I'm like, I'm literally turning into the garage with like one bar. So I can't answer the phone. So 2 minutes before my appointment, I turn in, I go, I'm like parked, I walk in, so I'm right on time. Again, they just called me 2 minutes. I'm greeted by concierge. And she's like, oh, hi. I tell her who I am. She's like, okay, well, her other tour went long. So you'll be right there. She'll be right with you. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, she just called me to confirm my appointment. And it looks like she's just starting another tour. So what I think happened was someone walked into tour and she shows them around, before me because I didn't answer the phone because I was turning into their apartment community. So I go have a seat. I get a cup of coffee. I wait. I end up waiting 20 minutes past my tour time to go see this apartment. So she takes me on the tour. Again, it's kind of rushed. She repeats herself a lot. Like she tells me about how it's a small community, only like under 300 units. It's boutique. Goes through the whole thing, right? She tells me about the specials, the community rooms. We go see all these different things. And we get to this apartment. And she wanted to show me this apartment because it had a special on it. I've never asked for the special. Like, I actually went a little higher than our prices because I always like to either like kind of play the extreme, right? Like I'm either way over what you're offering rent wise on my budget or I'm like right below because I want to see. So this time I'm like, let me go above and see like, are you going to give me like the penthouse because I can afford it? Or are you going to identify my needs? So she shows me this apartment and it's kind of dark. And now, mind you, we talked about how I work from home. And so I'm like, oh, it's a little darker than I had hoped. And she's like, yeah. Her way to overcome this objection was, yeah, that's why we're offering 6 weeks free. That's your way to handle it is you just put the special on it. Like, you don't give me maybe you can change out the light bulbs to be more instead of, a brighter bulb. Or, maybe you make this part your office and this part your sleeping room because this has a little bit more natural light. None of that, right? That's why we're offering an additional 2 weeks free on this unit. And then she like tries to tell me about, what type of residents lived there in the past and why it worked for them. We get back down to the office, again, doesn't ever ask me to apply for the apartment or anything like that. She asked me where else I'm going to go see halfway through the tour, which drives me crazy because it puts a different doubt into my mind. So we're going through all these things, right? So I'm like, okay, so I leave, I get in the car. I'm like, man, that wasn't the best tour. And then my last tour, probably hands down one of the best tours that I've had this year out of the 11. And probably within the last like 2 years. I walk in, the girl knew who I was, had me see, she repeated everything back to me, built a rapport with me, showed me around, took the time, laughed with me, like I almost forgot I was on a tour, to be honest. Like I was like, oh wow, this is cool. Like we were just friends. We talked a lot about my love for coffee and the new fall drinks at Starbucks. One of my objections was, where are all my Starbucks mugs going to go in this house? So we talked about that. And the first like way she like kind of helped me, she's like, oh, they could all go here. Like, and they were like, it was kind of hidden. I was like, oh no. Like I have curio cabinets, right? And like I'm explaining these curio cabinets to her. So that they don't get hidden. Like this is like my pride and joy. I move around a lot. So these are the only things that come with me. But she handled it like a pro, right? And then the next time she's like, okay, so do you think your curio cabinets would fit in this room better? And she asked me after each apartment, we saw 2 different apartments. She said, so did you like 1 or 2 better? And then she solely focused on the one that I liked better. And she even asked me to apply for the apartment. I've been on 11 tours this year, people. She was the first one to ask me to apply for the apartment. I told her I needed to think about it. I had a couple more places, I didn't realize that this was this community. I wanted to go check out this other one. She really drove home the special. She was like, yeah, but do keep in mind that this special may not be here tomorrow. So if you really want it, you really want to take the apartment now. I thought, oh, well, this is great. I mean, she really got to know me. She used it in her follow-up. Very personable. Probably if I were to hire all the leasing agents I saw, if I were to hire any of them, she would be the first one that I would try to recruit because she was that good. Was she perfect? No. Am I perfect? No. However, I will say I did have an objection. So she kept talking about how this community had Bluetooth speakers built into their thing. So you could connect your TV and surround sound and all that, which first time I've had seen an apartment community like this. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then we're walking through the apartment and I noticed that they have this technology of Bluetooth speakers that they invested in to stand out. Again, that's their selling point. But the thermostat is an old Honeywell thermostat, not a smart eco thermostat, not a Nest or anything like that, which I found really odd because you're obviously technological advance in there. It's like a Sonos speaker built into these walls, but you couldn't take the time to install an eco thermostat, which I would probably care more about than any wireless thing. However, I get what they're going for, right? Let's be different in the market and things like that. If you want a Nest thermostat, you can install it yourself. And that's how she handled it. And she did say, I'm not going to say we're never going to do those kind of upgrades. It's definitely something I can take back to my manager and, give that feedback if you wanted to move in. But in the meantime, you could take this money and you install it yourself and all of those things. So I was like, okay, that was not necessarily the way I would have handled that objection. I would have probably said, oh, is that what's stopping you from applying today? Is that you are doing, that right there? So I'm like, okay, cool, we go on. Couple things after shopping 5 apartments that I've learned. First one, find something that makes you stand out and deliver on that every time. So if it's the valet, if it's your amenities, if it's the Bluetooth, sell that point. Use it to your advantage. Make me know that is what makes you special. I saw 5 different apartment communities. Can't tell you what the interiors of them looked like because they all kind of had the same finishes. One definitely had hardwood floors. The second thing, if I am coming to see you, don't make me do the work. Don't ask me which floor plan speaks to me. Don't give me the guest card to fill out, especially if I've already booked the appointment because I'm in your system. I'm coming to you for help. I don't want to do more work. Stressful. Moving is already stressful enough. The third thing is make sure that you are reading the guest cards, right? You're understanding the guest card. You're reading them before I even walk in. And lastly, make sure that you are following up in a personalized manner. All of the tours about that last one felt very status quo, right? Nothing was unique. Nothing really felt personalized to me until that last one we cut up. Now, those are my kind of takeaways after touring 5 properties. What I found interesting is that this year, probably more than last year, I'm actually seeing more apartment homes. We're not doing a great job identifying the needs. So, I've been seeing 2 to 3 apartment homes overall, which is crazy, right? I'm on average right now of seeing 3 apartment homes per property. I think it's because we have more availability and we're not sure how to sell that now. So just identify the needs and tell me that. And lastly, I want to leave you guys with some exciting news that you heard it here first. I have decided that Rooms with Ronald is going to have a micro course podcast as well. I know a lot of listeners dedicate their time to listen to me, and I really thank you for that. So I've decided that Rooms with Ronald is going to be doing a micro version, 10 minutes or less, and it's going to slowly focus on one topic. So I like to call them kind of like mini episodes where I'm going to give you advice on one topic and be 10 minutes or less and how to help you achieve success. Kind of think it as Ronald's hot takes. Be on the lookout for that in the next couple weeks as I deliver. The very first one is going to be on dress and how you should dress for success. Until next time, guys, this has been Rooms with Ronald. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington. I hope you learned a little something about Houston and my experience in that market, and you've got some great takeaways. Until next time, happy leasing, everyone. Bye. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope I left you with some fresh ideas or a new perspective. Leasing and marketing are evolving rapidly, and Rooms with Ronald is committed to offering a place to hear about those changes. We also celebrate and acknowledge the fundamentals of exceptional service that will never go out of style. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, or subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other exceptional industry podcasts, call pieces, and sponsorship opportunities.